Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. Today I'm enjoying, I guess you could say, a chamomile lemongrass herbal blend. I'm not really big on chamomile, potato. But it's probably good for me today. My stomach's a little off, so that's all there is to that. I thought I would do the Persuasion Tag, which is a Jane Austen book tag, which was created by Armita by the book, and I was tagged by Berna's Bookish Adventures. So thank you for tagging me, and it feels kind of apt because not only is this Jane Austen July, but it was the July that we at the group read. One of the group reads is Persuasion, and Persuasion is my favorite Jane Austen novel, followed quite closely by Pride and Prejudice, but still very much my favorite. I love it so much. So yay, I get to do a tag about Persuasion. So yes. Okay, so let's start. Some of these questions are kind of basic, my answers, but you know, I was going to do a lot more thinking about it, and then I thought, let's just keep it simple. So the first question is, Persuasion, like many Austen books, has been successfully adapted to screen many times. I like the one from 95-ish. Name your beloved on-screen adaptation of a book published before 1900. And there's a lot of good ones that I've seen. I've seen some, saw not a bad one of Dr. Thorne not too long ago. What's his name? Julian Fellows did that from, the Downton Abbey guy and other things. And I was gonna say North and South based on the Elizabeth Gaskell. Anyway, that would have probably been a bit of a redundancy because I think Berna already mentioned that, and that's fine. Although it is one of my favorites, but I have to probably, if I'm going to really be honest, and, while we're on Jane Austen, probably the Sense and Sensibility from 95 with Emma Thompson and Kate Winslet, etc. That one really is one of the ones I've enjoyed completely since, 1995. So let's go with that. Let's see. The second question is, in Persuasion, Anne and Captain Wentworth really go through the ringer. What's your favorite angsty romance that isn't them? I'm not big on angsty. I'm not. But I would say, going back to early days of enjoying slightly romantic stories, I would probably say Gilbert Blythe and Anne Shirley, because it just starts out so messed up. He obviously likes her and says something to her that is highly offensive to her. She reacts terribly, treats him like a pariah for quite some time, and then they finally become friends. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but then it's just, but even so, I think him trying to get close to her and yet just the back and forth, it was a little comedic sometimes, but it was also kind of sweet in a lot of ways too. So I like them. I wouldn't say it's the most angsty, but I think it's the one I like. One of the ones I like the most. Let's see. Question 3. Captain Wentworth is a naval captain. Tell us about a book featuring a lead character who is in a branch of the military. So I don't know if you meant, if the question meant like a modern military, like, Army, Navy, Marines, etc. But I would probably say I'm not big on reading military, so I went a little farther back, and I thought, well, military could also include, medieval times, everybody, all those people who fought in different wars and battles and stuff. And I quite like The Sun and Splendor, can't say it for some reason, by Sharon K. Penman, and speaking about Richard III, who was quite good in terms of military practices, well, not practices, but in ability until the Battle of Bosworth. So I would say reading about him in that book was enjoyable in that sense anyway, because I really don't like to read about battles and war and stuff like that, but he was definitely considered, I would say, military, just also royal, right? Okay. Question 4. British naval captains were famous adventurers. What's your favorite adventure story? I read a number of things that are adventures and good, and there's a lot of things I could include, but I thought, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is something I really like. A lot of the short stories and some of the novels I really, really like. you know, a lot of it is detection, so you think, okay, that's not incredibly adventurous, but there were times where they had to give chase to somebody, and Watson had to bring his revolver. I mean, I guess you could say he was in the military, but we're not going to go back. Um, so there was a lot of movement and adventure involved. So yeah, let's go with that. Question 5. Anne is quite a dutiful sister. What's your favorite literary sibling relationship? And I know I'm going to think of another one later on, just because nothing is occurring to me right now. I'm going to be like, oh, why did I think of them? Oh, they're so good. But I'm going to go back to similar answer to what I said before, and I'm going to say I really do like the Dashwood sisters, especially Eleanor and Marianne. I'm not saying they have a perfect relationship, but you could tell that they really do love each other. They don't quite always understand why the other one is the way they are, but they do seem to just really love each other so much and support each other as much as possible. And I always like them. Question 6. By the standards of the time, Anne was a spinster. Yep. What is a book where the female lead is an older woman? And I mean, always going to say Miss Marple, because that's, you know, one of my favorite older women. It's not a book. There's a number of books with Miss Marple, but I'm kind of I'm not on a strict regimen right now, but I'm going to be trying to reread and read Miss Marple the next couple of years, because I did read a lot of Marple before anything else. I read a lot of Miss Marple novels, but I hadn't gotten back to them again until this year. So I don't want to mention a specific book. So I'll go off of Miss Marple, and I'll be repetitive again because it's someone I've mentioned a number of times in recent years. But I did quite like them. Oh, I didn't write the name of the author. Sorry about that. But Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk. I like that one very much, just because it was completely from a perspective. She wasn't a spinster, but it did say an older woman, and she was not married at the time. I don't think. No, she was not at the time of the book, and she's like around her mid-80s. And yes, there are other stories. I think one of the tags they mentioned, a lot of Rosamund Pilcher's books have older characters, but those are the ones I thought of the most. 7th question. Persuasion is one of the most critiqued / referenced books in English literature. Is it? That's kind of interesting, because in school, anyway, name a book whose plot or characters or central ideas reference another book. And this was another one that was definitely mentioned by Armita. But I don't care, because it is one of my very favorite living authors, and a series that I really liked, and there hasn't been a new one in some time. But that was the Thursday Next novels by Jasper Fforde. She mentioned The Air Affair, and that is the first one, but there's other ones, though. First among sequels that came later. The Well of Lost Plots. Oh, Lost in a Good Book. Something Rotten. They're really amazing. They reference not just books. They reference a ton of classics. I mean, already with The Air Affair, you know which one they're referencing. But Dickens and Austen and maybe definitely Bronte. Kafka. The Fairy Queen is referenced, and there's tons more that are just not occurring to me right now because I can never think of them off the top of my head. But it's all about kind of an alternate Earth where people are much more concerned about books, and there's a whole literary crimes sort of situation where jurisfiction, all kinds of stuff where people are protecting books. And reading is so much, I think, more important and regulated. And Thursday Next has to deal with time travelers and big corporations and other evil people. Not that all the time travelers were evil. Her dad wasn't. But just so many different things. But she also has the ability to jump into books, which means she can read a book and become jump into the story and meet people there. So she gets all involved with that, and and people from the book start coming out too, and she works with them. For instance, she works with Miss Havisham, which I thought was hilarious, from Great Expectations. And I thought they were very clever. There's other books that have done that too, but that's my absolute favorite, and so much fun. Like I said, it's not just about bookish references, though there are so many, but even historical figures pop up. Um, and yeah, I think there's even vampires, but there's not too much about that. I'm not really that into vampires, so at all actually. So, but there's something for everyone in that respect. It's like if you took Doctor Who and maybe like Douglas Adams and history and literature and just combined them, possibly. I don't know. So, question 8 is, Captain Wentworth made his fortune at sea. Tell us about a book with a self-made lead character. I don't know. The first one that occurred to me was Gatsby, Jay Gatsby from The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I just see, he kind of, like, when I say self-made man, it's not just financially. I mean, he basically made up a whole person, like, persona, like, backstory almost, that wasn't really him. So, that's as self-made as you can get, right? Okay, so question 9. Persuasion has a lot to say about traditional gender roles. What's a book that plays with traditional gender roles? And I thought of one that I haven't read in a number of years now, and it's not the only one, obviously, but there was I don't know if it was a trilogy or a couple of books called Leviathan by, let's see, Scott Westerfield. And it was also another alternate Earth, you know, it was kind of steampunk. Actually, quite steampunk. I'm not really that into steampunk novels, stuff like that, but this one was pretty good. It takes place during the time of World War One, except airships and stuff, you know. And so yeah, it's just a slightly different world. And there's a character named Darren who wants to be a part of the what's it called? I wrote it down. I can't read my own handwriting. I took notes. The British Air Service, and she can't because she's a female, so she disguises herself as a male to be a part of this. And so obviously she's trying not to be discovered, but she makes the acquaintance of the son of Franz Ferdinand, who's, you know, obviously, who was now an orphan and in a lot of danger. I don't think he was a real person, but I don't remember now. But obviously this is an alternate Earth, so there's all kinds of adventures. It is fun, and I do recommend it. It wasn't like the best thing I ever read, but it was pretty good in that sense. And question 10 is optional, but it says, finally tell us a bit of trivia, a fun aside, a personal anecdote related to either Persuasion or any other work by Jane Austen. And I think that's kind of like half of what I do. This channel is like yammer on about things about Jane Austen or something that happened in relation to her books or whatever. So I'm not going to do that too much, except I figure this is also not just a booktube channel, but I talk a lot about tea. And I have been there more than once, but when I first actually got to go into the Twinings tea shop on the Strand in London, I was really excited, of all things, because it has existed since the 18th century, and a couple of works about that time have suggested that Jane Austen might have gone there to buy tea. Now, is it proven? I'm not sure, but just even the thought that she might have been there made it even more exciting. So that, and of course going to the pump room in Bath back in like 2005, and we did, after my sisters and I, it was all three of my sisters, I mean, well, 2 and me, so it was all 3 of us that actually went and took this trip, and we did a day trip from London to Bath, and we enjoyed the entire city that we, you know, of the time that we spent there. We obviously, it was just day trip, so we didn't get to see everything. I would like to go back one day. I was supposed to my last trip, but it didn't work out, so because my last trip didn't happen, but just going there and knowing, you know, so much of the story of Persuasion, you know, takes place in Bath. I know that Anne Elliot wasn't really supposed to like that area too much, but still, it was still cool to be there. Knowing also that Jane Austen lived there. We did also go to like a Jane Austen house. It wasn't really the one she lived in, but it basically looked like it was. It was the same street. That was cool. just being in the whole era. I mean, now that I've reread Northanger Abbey, I would also probably look for things there too. But I think I appreciate it more for Persuasion just because so many of the important events happen in that. So yeah, that's it. And so the last thing is to tag everybody. I don't know who to tag because I don't know who's done this. I've looked it up a little bit, but quite a few people did it earlier this year. I think that the tag came out when there was a read-along of Persuasion in January-ish. So I think a lot of people have already done it. But I would say if you are reading Persuasion this month or have read it anytime recently and you haven't done this tag, then consider yourself tagged because there's a lot to think about here. So that's all for now. I've done a tag. I haven't done a tag in a while, so that's good. I want to keep a habit of it, but I'm not obsessed with the whole deal. So that's all for now. This is Catherine taking tea with Catherine. I'm a little warm now, so I gotta put the AC on. Maybe I should have drank some iced tea. Have a lovely tea and persuasion-filled day. Bye.